Now, in creating or developing the site where our building would be, we're going to start with getting our property lines out, which is the boundary of our site. Okay, and to do that, now we have a default view here called site view, and we'll go to that view. All right, and these are the default Revit coordinates. We won't talk about that now. It can get very tricky, but just leave it as it is. Don't modify anything. So we have to get in our site survey so that we can plot out the boundaries of the site. And to do that, I would also link again. I think it's an image. I will link image, and we have that here, this image, and open it up and place it on the site. Okay, so with this we see the bearings of our site, and we are going to plot that out in Revit. Now, to do that, if you come to the massing and sites tab, you have this feature under the model site panel, property line. And what that does is you're able to create the boundary of the site based on the information you've gotten from your survey. You can create it manually, or you can put in the bearing and it generates it for you. Okay, so if I select property line, you have two options: create by entering distance and bearing, create by sketching. Create by sketching means you just draw it out by yourself however you want the shape to go, and select good. You have your property line that way. Okay, but that's not what we want. We want to use this bearing so that we have the exact size of our plot. And to do that, we would use the bearing feature. Okay, so create by entering distance and bearing. And before we proceed, we would make a small change to the settings. So I would come under this area and property line data, and I will change this from degree from north to south to just degrees. Okay, and I'll leave this as degrees, minutes, and seconds. That's what we have, and apply and click OK. Alright, and I'll select property line by distance and bearing, and this is what we have. So now we look at our site, and we have, I think, 5 sides: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we need 5 figures. Okay, so we just click insert to insert 5 new rows to the table. Now we would start with the smallest bearing and go clockwise till we get to the highest one. So the distance here is 31.41. Now remember, we set our distance from the beginning to meters. So meaning when we set this, when we type in this, we should put it in meters, not in millimeters, because this is distance. Okay, so for this we'll do 31.41. That's that's for the first one, 31.41, and the bearing we'll put 28 space bar and just put 08, and that's all. And it would impute it, and you just go to the next row and it would automatically put them in degrees and feet. Okay, so for this we would go with 38 meters, which is this. And on this, okay, no, the second one is this, rather, this edge, the chamfered edge. So for this we have a 2.83, and on this we have 7308. So we'll go 73, I'll go 08. On the third one we have 38 meters long, and here we have 116 by 08. So go 116, I'll go 08. On the fourth one, which is this guy, we have 33.20, and we have 28 and 08. So we'll go 28 and 08. And on the last one we have 40 meters, and this is 297.51, and we go 40 meters, 297.51. Okay, and once you're done with that, we just click OK. Okay, now there's a mistake somewhere. Okay, I think the table didn't read this as, it didn't read this as meters. It didn't read this as meters, and I'm wondering why. Interesting. So let me change this to meters and see if it would automatically change. It doesn't. Okay, so I'll just select that. So once you select the property line, it's very small, so be careful. But you can take this correction. As you select the property line, edit the table. So it's actually picking this figure in, it was picking it in millimeters and now it's picking it in meters. So what we can do is just to impute them in actual meters again. That's a 1.41, and then we'll come here, we impute 2.83, come here, we impute 38, come here, we impute 33.2, come here, we impute 40. Okay, and we click OK. Alright, and it has adjusted to actual size. Alright, so with that done, now remember we said our knot is upwards this way, so we need to rotate this to the other side. So we can use the rotate tool, pick center so that it goes to the center of the selected element, and we'll just flip this by 90 degrees. Yeah, and same alignment with this. Okay, so same alignment with this. It doesn't join exactly, but we can work with that. That's a small fraction. Sometimes it joins perfectly, sometimes there's room for tolerance. Okay, but once it gives you an approximate of what you need, you can fly with that. All right, use one of the edges of my site, let's say this edge, or maybe this one, as a reference, and just drop it on that end. Okay, it doesn't really matter most times where this is, but I just like to do that. Either I do it with the building or with the site. Okay, now once that's done, another thing we would have to do, because with this already done, and now remember, like we said, our not arrow is this way, but we have our roads on this side. And if we are to if we remember from our floor plan, our building is somewhere here, right? But it would be wrong to be showing our floor plan this way, slanted, and then the entrance is this way, so we are looking at the building upside down. All right, because if you look at your ground floor, you can see that's the exact same way the site is positioned. All right, same thing here. So it would be wrong to have this on floor plan viewing this way. It has to be seen straight so that it's appreciated by everyone. So to do that, we would have to make our site, so usually the site view, the north arrow is straight on the site regardless of the inclination. Leave your north arrow as straight, but on your floor plan the north arrow can change, but make sure the floor plan is straight. All right, and to do that, there is something you can do in Revit under the manage tab. It's called rotating your coordinates per se. Okay, so let me see if this file has a default um not arrow symbols. Does it have any? Okay, it has one. Yeah. But it's not clear. It's just okay. Let me edit the family, and I'll just add this to it so that I know exactly where my note is. No, and back into project and close. No. All right. Yeah. So this is my N. Now, if this is my knot, so I can actually rotate or make each view have a different orientation. Okay, and how I do that is through two actual elements are in Revit. One is my true knot, one is my project knot. Okay, one is my true knot, one is my project knot. And how that works, the true knot is showing the actual knot of the entire project. All right, so this true knot now, it would be this site knot, the actual knot direction, which is this. But project knot gives you the opportunity to flip the, it's going to show the knot of a particular view, if I'll use that illustration. So meaning if this ground floor is facing this way, the north arrow on this ground floor, because it's straight here, automatically when this is straight, the north arrow has to face another direction. Okay, on this particular view. All right, so I have the opportunity to have a true knot facing up, a project knot in another direction, so that my views correspond to what I want to have. And to do that, what I can do is under orientation here. So you see under the properties panel, orientation, you have two, if you click drop down, you have project knot and true knot. Okay, so I would make this view true knot, which is this. All right, on default I think other views are on project knot. Okay, now if this becomes my true knot, which is this, I can go to another view. Let's say maybe I will just copy and paste on my ground floor to this position. Now, one thing I'll have to do is to pick a particular side of my plot and use it as a reference for my building's alignment. Okay, so I can say I want this side of my building to align with this side of the fence, or the back side to align with this side of the fence, or this side to align with that side, just for references purposes. All right, so that it's easy to coordinate the design. So because the building is positioned closer to this axis, I would say let the building wall, which is this one, align to this position. So in that case, this line has to be, this particular part of um, the site has to be straight for this particular view, because it's going to be somewhere here. It's going to be somewhere here. So this is going to be like this. So it has to be straight on this view. But on the other, on the site, it can remain like this. So to do that, I'll come back here. Now under the Manage tab, Position, Project Location panel rather, you have this position. If you click the drop down, you can mirror or rotate project node. Okay, but always make sure that this is set to project node before you carry out any of this. You can also do the same thing for your true node, but always make sure that that particular view has project node or true node selected. So I will do it for project node. I would rotate it, and it's asking me how do I want to rotate. 90 degrees clockwise, 90 degrees counterclock, 180, or align to selected plane. So I would go, now I want to turn this to a straight line, so I would go clockwise once so that it gets closer to this axis. Okay, and then I would now use this align selected line or plane. Okay, so if I click 90, we see that it has turned, this side has turned 90 degrees, and this is where our north arrow is. But if we look at the site, we see that the north remains straight, the site remains straight, but on this view it has changed. Okay, and this has changed also, and we can also rotate this back. Okay, and then, but we want this straight. Okay, and so we can go again and say rotate another 90 degrees. Okay, so this is now on this axis. All right, now with this done, we have the next method I would recommend would be to use the last one, which is align selected plane to selected plane. And to do that, I will just put a line, a straight line on this axis. So what this is saying is this, we want to align this line to a reference line. Okay, so it's going to depend on how close this is to the horizontal plane or the vertical plane. Alright, and let me explain what I mean. So if we have this horizontal, vertical, now this line, or let me move this to this edge, to the edge of this, and I'll just temporarily hide this. So we see now, based on this angle, right, the distance between the horizontal and this is about or the angle rather 63, and this is 26. So this line is closer to being vertical than being horizontal. And so what that tool does is it aligns this line to whichever axis it is closer to, whether it's closer to the horizontal. If it's closer to the horizontal, it will align this to the horizontal line. If it's closer to the vertical, it will align this to the vertical line. Alright, I hope that's clear. So if we come to manage positions, rotate, and I'll click align to selected, it will now tell you pick which line you want to align it to, and I'll pick this, and okay. And nothing worked. Why? I'm wondering why it didn't rotate. Let's try that again. Position, rotate, align selected line. Okay, sorry, I have to select this, not this. This is already aligned. This is what I have to select. So I'll select this, yeah, and I'll click OK. And we see that this line is now straight. Okay, but if we go to our site, it remains slant. And if I copy this exact same box now and paste it on this view, look at, it's already straight. Okay, so that's how this rotating tool works, so that you can have your floor plan straight but also have your site plan slant. All right, so I think that will be all for this session. And in the next session we would reposition this, clean it up, and then place our building exactly where it's supposed to be on this. So we would have to rotate this back to being straight rather, and we can simply, okay, let's do that here. We can simply do that by, if we take this angle 26.13, select this and rotate this back by 26.13, so that it's now straight, and then we can rotate again by 180. Okay, and then we can now place this on the site where we want it to be. Okay, and we'll just do the same thing for this. We'll unpin this, rotate it by 26.13, and then RO, rotate again 180. Yeah, and it's now straight. Okay, and we can pick this here. So with this, let's just pin the property line because we want it to be here. Okay, pin that at that position. We want it to be, so we'll pin it there. Alright, so that will be it for this, and the next session we would now go to getting out our site boundary and possibly tracing out also our site features. I think you can find that in the exercise file under the PDF, the first file, the first page rather. So if I insert and link PDF, the first page is our site layout. If we look, we would see that, yeah, the first page is our site layout, and so we would work on getting out all the lines and the boundaries and getting our building outline. before we actually start putting in our walls and 3D geometry. Alright, so thank you all for joining me in this session, and see you in the next one. Bye. Hello guys, thank you all for joining me for that session. So I observed that the explanation for the true knot and project knot concepts might have not been very clear, and so what I've done is to do a separate video just focusing on that concept of the true knot and the project knot, so that everybody gets the complete idea of how it works and why it's being used. Okay, and that's going to be the next video after this before we continue with our series. So I enjoin you all to watch that if you don't have a clear understanding of the concept, and then try and get the picture of how it's being used so that you can apply in your own personal development. All right, so thank you all so much for being with me on this series, and then I'll see you in the next video. Bye.